Hello. Recently, the MEC for Finance in Gauteng delivered the medium budget term policy statement, mini budget if you like. I caught up with MEC Jacob Mamabulo. MEC for Finance in Gauteng, Mr. Jacob Mamabulo, always a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Good morning to you.
You delivered the medium-term budget policy statement recently. What would you say overall were the highlights of what you had to say?
Well, three things in their order. I think the very first thing is you'll have seen in the statement, and of course the speech itself, we elevated the issue of women empowerment, gender-focused, gender-responsive budget. And of course, with that, two things. We believe empowering women is important, but also it makes a huge contribution in the fight against gender-based violence and femicide. Also, in addition, when you empower women, there are some of them who are caught up in the cycle of gender-based violence because they are dependent on the abuser and the perpetrator. So when you direct money to flow into women-owned, women-led households, we believe that makes a huge dent, a positive impact on poverty, on the difficulties that households faces. We have also reconfigured and reorganized the budget to elevate what we call tracing the geography of money. And we're working with one of the departments in the province, which is COCTA, to look at where does our money go to. The money, the expenditure of the province, the payments we're making on the system for small, micro, medium enterprises, for cooperatives, again, for women-owned businesses, young women, people with disability, spending on infrastructure, spending on goods and services, transfers. Where does this money end up going? So if I were to use a simple way, I'll say, what is the geolocation of the money? So we have got a technological solution or device that is able to tell us where did the money go to. So that's the second issue, so that we can see how are we impacting poverty-ridden wards. And how are we helping those communities with the budget of the province? We also, I must say, one key overarching message that came out is directing our resources into the townships. And that's really, if you look at the townships today, they still mirror the persisting legacy of apartheid, of oppression. And I was very clear in the budget speech, we're not dealing with market failure in terms of how the private sector, the banks are looking at townships. We're dealing with a deliberate, historic, conscious policy of the then apartheid government to ignore townships. So in that regard, I think we're turning the corner on the message that opportunities or upside opportunities in the province lie in focusing the economy in the townships. And I must say I was very much pleased to be invited just last week to township economic activities in Soweto around Vilakazi Street, where we met with the township entrepreneurs. It was an exciting moment. They were there. Even today, we're supposed to be visiting a women's owned company. So the issue of focus on townships, also take into an account, we have passed an act, the Township Economic Development Act. So these are the overarching issues around the budget.
All right, let's talk numbers a little bit. So budget adjustment of 2.4 billion. What informed that?
The adjustment that we have made, it's a product of various things. One of them is we have got monies that we had to roll over into the current period, mostly to focus on infrastructure. We had to reprioritize the budget, reorganize it, bring more money into our crime-fighting capacity. You'll recall that when the Premier Lesotho took office, one of the issues that he was quite eloquent and talked about in detail was the need to fight crime. So whilst Gauteng province has got opportunities on the upside, but the downside risks are essentially about crime. It's one of the overarching issues that is posing a threat to the well-being of the people, to the infrastructure, to the economy itself. So you will see that we have allocated almost 173 million rands addition to the Department of Community Safety so that they can recruit more people and begin to pilot some of the concepts that, and of course the solutions that have been put there, acquire drones, so leveraging smart technology. You know, in today's environment where the fourth industrial revolution and technology has moved, we shouldn't be fighting crime like in the old Stone Age, using obsolete, outdated methods. So the acquisition of drones and the money we have put into that is going to help us test case and pilot, combination of human intelligence on the ground, people, giving criminals a run, but also now you have the capability up in the sky, what I call the eye in the sky, complementing men and women on the ground. And of course, you'll also have business intelligence capabilities in different technological software and systems. So we're looking at multidisciplinary, sources of technology, of human and other capabilities to make sure that we rid this province of criminals. So I think the increase that we are putting into community safety should say to the residents of our province, we are going to crack crime. And we'll see now in December we are starting. Health is very much important. You'll see in the budget we're saying that Gauteng province has the biggest health responsibility in the province, in the continent. Our health capacity and our health institutions are carrying a huge burden. So it was also important to look at people. So you'll see part of the money in health is going to making sure that we can pay the clinicians, the medical staff, the teams that you need there, and also infrastructure. In human settlement, we're putting money there for bulk infrastructure. We have got a difficulty in the province that the alignment between our municipalities on supporting bulk infrastructure and the priorities of the province to drive housing and human settlements, that we're not together.
All right. So you mentioned an interesting word there, rollover. And so as a resident and citizen of Gauteng, the question then comes, how do these rollovers happen?
In the budget speech, we said that we have got to address the problem in the province where we have under expenditure in the different areas. Money is voted for by members of the legislature. Then poor planning affects important priorities. But when you look at them, you see these priorities still remain important, irrespective of the fact that it has missed its target in the year. So then they apply, and it's not like it's automatic. There must be an application. You must motivate. It must undergo thorough scrutiny consideration. Then Treasury must make a determination on whether they approve or not approve the request for rollover. So this is one perennial problem that we have acknowledged. We were very upfront and open about it. Many of it happens in infrastructure. And you will have also seen that we have made an announcement that moving forward, all the CAPEX projects or all the projects for infrastructure, we are not going to bring them into the budget process in the province before the legislature if they do not meet certain minimum requirements. So we are talking about establishing what we call the Project Readiness Matrix Lab. This is a laboratory where we will drop a project in the lab, test it. Does it have land? Sometimes it has land, but the land may not be adequate for a school, for example. Sometimes you have land, there are people who have invaded the road reserve, and then to remove them, evict them is another issue. So we need to tick those boxes. Is the land issues. You may have land, but you might find that the topographic conditions of the land, the underground rock formation, doesn't allow you what you want to do. And then some of these things come in the course of the project. So we need to tick the boxes well in advance to make sure that we can avoid things like this. So it's an issue of planning, of design of projects and all that.
So do you have the right people with the skills to get the job done? When I hear you talking, I feel confident in my MEC for Finance. But I wonder, when I look at issues around Dukescape Park and human settlements, how are we dealing with that? Because these floods have exposed some weaknesses.
Well, I think let's start with whether we have got the right competencies in the right places, because you can have a mismatch. I think that is a point we must concede. We don't necessarily. So the answer is we don't necessarily have. There are good men and women in our public service that are doing a wonderful job. But given the history of our country, where we're coming from, many years of colonial education, it will not be correct to say we have the right. We still have what is called scarce critical skills, which are published by the Department of Home Affairs to try to attract good skills. So you'll see in the built environment or construction in engineering, that's where you find a huge concentration of scarce skills. Now, if you look at infrastructure in the province that has been built at some point in the past, and you look at a dramatic shift in climate conditions, and you look at heavy rains, lack of water management systems on the road, which means when there's rain, water is, it's on the road. There are no water management systems. The number of new houses, factories that have been built means more water onto the road. So if the water management systems are not adequate, and they were not meant to manage the huge number of roofs and the heavy rains that are coming, that's why we're having the difficulties. So we're going to need, and some of these really are municipal responsibilities. So we're going to have to look at how do we deal with this challenge given the skills shortages that we have. And that is why the delivery model of government now is partnering with the private sector. So the way we do infrastructure currently is, whilst we have got officials in those positions, but we also bring engineering consulting firms to help us design solutions. So we're leveraging the skills in the private sector, but sometimes even with them, when they do work for government, they bring the best to win the tender. When they go into work, then those best guys qualified are moved to new projects in the private sector, because we are still weak as government in enforcing contracts. So whilst we leverage in the private sector skills, I shouldn't create an impression that it's all systems go. We still have some of them dodgy businesses that mislead us and so on.
We're going to have a couple of conversations, perhaps to end this one. Energy, that's a big issue. I own a hairdressing shop perhaps in Randburg, and energy is a big issue for me, and it could be literally the end of my business. How in your budget are you helping small business in particular deal with the energy crisis?
I think, let's just concede up front. This is the elephant in the room across the country, not only for our province. I guess the impact is even felt more here, where the economic hub of the country. We have got an institution in the department that we call GIFA, the Gauteng Infrastructure Financing Agency, which reports to Treasury. we have commissioned a very important project to leverage our rooftops to almost take certain electrical needs off the grid. And we are doing this pilot project so that we can then see to what extent we can expand this even to SMMEs, to household, to other government institutions. So what we're doing is that we're looking for best practice. In actual fact, the economy of the future is based on harvesting the sun. Hydrogen and other sources of alternative, renewable green energy are the economy of the future. You can see where the world is going, Europe and so on. So we are already in that space, and this initiative that I'm talking about is at an advanced stage. I'm quite sure that next year we will be launching this project because it is a practical, concrete, not an announcement or a promise. It is a tangible reality that we must take the lead as government to say to the people, renewables are a way to go, alternative sources of energy are the way to go, and we must take the lead. So this initiative that we're talking about is our game changer. And I would like to say to the people, this project is going to help the residents of Gauteng to know in what direction we move.
MEC Mamabulo, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity.